Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Now, this video is being recorded quite late because we had already finished the topic of regular operations and mixed operations a while back, but I forgot to include this video in which we're going to be talking about applying everything we know about our arithmetic, so our plussing, minusing, timesing, dividing, and as well as the mixed operations, so our order of operations, and we're going to apply this to some worded problems. Now, I'm including this as its own separate video because a lot of students typically get very hung up on this, and they tend to struggle with making these words, these little paragraphs and sentences, into a mathematical operation and finding ways to actually solve this. Sometimes they can do it in their head, but the real struggle I find is typically showing working. So in this video, we're going to go through how we can lay out our working, how we can break down these types of questions into a mathematical expression, and then get the answer after that. Now we're going to jump straight into some questions here. Now, I've got this top one here, and we're going to break this down and look at how we can go about solving this. So there are 4 doctors working in a clinic. Each doctor has 2 nurses assisting them. There are 2 receptionists, Jay and Molly, working at the reception. Now, question 1 asks us how many people are working in the clinic. So how many people in total are working here? So what we're going to do, if you have questions on a sheet of paper or something like that, you can actually highlight this and write it down, or you can just make a note of all the important bits. But in this video, I'm going to highlight. So we have 4 doctors working in this clinic. Another piece of information that's going to help us is that each doctor, so all of these 4 doctors, have 2 nurses assisting them, and there are 2 receptionists. So I have my doctors here, I have my nurses here, I'm just splitting this all up, and I have my receptionists here. So I have my doctors, nurses, and receptionists. So I know that I have 4 doctors, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have 2 receptionists as well. I'm going to draw those in. And I have 2 nurses for each doctor. So that means each of these guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, has 2 nurses. So that means we can say that each one of these guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, each of my 4 doctors has 2 nurses working with them. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1 and 2. Okay, I've done this a slightly longer way to give you hopefully a bit of the intuition for how we're breaking this down, and I'm also going to, once we do this, actually come up with a mathematical expression for this. So how many people in total are working in the clinic? What are we going to do? Well, we are going to add my doctors with my nurses with my receptionists. So how many doctors do we have? Well, I have 4. That is in the question. And now, I mean, I've taken a bit of time to draw up all the nurses, but if we were to, and we can count those and say, okay, there's 8 of them, but in terms of breaking down the question, let's look at how we can express this using this second highlighted bit. Each doctor has 2 nurses. So there are 4 doctors, and there are 2 nurses for each doctor. So we can say, in other words, there are 4 groups of 2, or 4 lots of 2 nurses, because there are 2 nurses to each doctor. And how can we write that? What mathematical operation is that? Well, it's a multiplication. So I have 4 lots of 2 nurses because I have 4 doctors, 2 nurses for each. So I have 4 lots of 2 nurses. And I'm going to add my 2 receptionists here. So let's actually rub this top bit out. So I'm going to be left with just my mathematical expression that I want to solve. So here we're going to apply what we know about our order of operations. So I have this thing here, 4 plus 4 times 2 plus 2. So when we have these types of questions, we need to consult our order of operations. Now, we've talked about this in a previous video, so I'm going to assume everyone that's here has watched that. If you haven't, please do. But we are going to do our multiplication first. So I'm going to find out what 4 times 2 is. From my times tables, I know that is 8. So I'm going to write 8 in the place of 4 times 2. And everything else is going to remain here. And now all I have to do is 4 plus 8 plus 2. That gives me 14. So this is how we can break down some of the wording. The wording typically confuses a lot of people. So we just need to take that and make it into something that we have seen before. We've seen these types of questions. We worked through them in the previous video of this series. So we want to find a way to show our thinking, show our working out, and get this worded paragraph into a mathematical arithmetic question that we can solve. So that's question 1. Now let's think about breaking down this second question. On Monday, 23 patients made appointments with each doctor. That last bit is important. However, 6 of the patients did not show up. How many patients visited the clinic on Monday? So let's actually write a couple of things down. So we have 23 patients for each doctor. And 6 people didn't show up. So that means we have 6 less patients than we were expecting. Because if they didn't show up, they actually weren't there. So we have the people that made the appointments, these 23 patients for each doctor, but 6 did not show up. So let's actually write that down. So 6 didn't show up. Or in other words, we have 6 less than expected. Okay, now let's keep in mind, how many doctors do we have? Well, we have, from the question up here, we remember we have 4 doctors, but we have 23 patients for each doctor. So that means we have 23 patients for 1 doctor. How can we find the amount required for 4 doctors? Well, we can think of this in terms of our mathematical operations. We have 23 patients, a group of 23 patients for 1 doctor. So if we have 4 doctors, that means that we have 23 patients and another 23 patients and another 23 patients and another 23 patients. Now, this is really annoying to write, isn't it? So we want to figure out, well, what's an easier way to do this? What have we learnt so far? Well, we have here, let's do this color, 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 23. So we can rewrite this as 4 lots of 23 or 4 times 23. That's our first bit. So I have, to find this, I have 4 times 23. Once again, I have my 23 patients for my 4 doctors. But 6 didn't show up. So I have actually 6 less than this thing here. These are all my patients that booked, but 6 didn't show up. I have 6 less than expected. Now, when we say less than, or 6 less, that implies that we are subtracting 6. We have 6 less. So I'm going to write here minus 6. And now I have another order of operations question here. I've taken all my bits of information and I've translated it into a mathematical expression, some kind of plus, minus, times, dividing expression here. Now, if you want, you can pause the video to have a go at doing this thing and showing your working out. But just to get through all the questions, I'm going to just give you the answer here, because my main focus for this video is breaking down all of the words and making it into the numbers here so I can actually solve it. So this video is assuming that you know all of the operations quite well. So this may give you a chance to do some practice on your own. But if I do my 4 times 23, I get 92. So I'm going to replace this thing here with 92 in my second line of working out. And from that, I'm going to subtract 6. And that there is going to give me 86 as my answer. Because once we get to here, it becomes easy. Because it looks like the questions we've done before. Now, of course, order of operations tells us that we want to do the multiplication first. So that's why I did my 4 times 23 first, and only then, once I find that, do I subtract 6 from 92. Now let's look at another question, and we're going to be doing the same types of things here. So let's read it together, and then underline the key bits that are going to help us to answer it. So we have here, Charles earns $420 a day at his job. 1 week, he works a total of 5, that should be days. Sorry about that. 5 days. At the end of the week, when he receives his pay, he buys a TV for $369 and also gives $110 to his friend to pay him back for something. How much money does Charlie have left over? Or Charles? Couple of typos in this question. Okay, so let's underline the most important bits of information. We know that Charles earns $420 a day. 1 week he works a total of 5 days. That's already giving us a hint to what we may be doing here. And then once he receives his pay, he buys a TV for $369. So he's dipping into the money he's earned, and also gives $110 to his friend. Now, I have that Charles makes $420 for 1 day. Now, we're told that he worked for 5 days. So what I want to do is the same way in the previous question. I'm looking at $420 and 5 groups of that $420 because he's made 420 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row. So we have, in other words, 5 groups of $420. So I can write this as, well, to find out how much money he has left, I can take my 5 groups and multiply it by 420. But now, the next bits, he buys a TV for $369 and he also gives $110 to his friend. So he is taking the money he's earned this week. So this is his money earned, and he's dipping into this to make these payments. So the $369 and $110, they are coming out of his account. So once he gets his weekly earnings, his money earned, he is taking out money. So his money is getting less, right? So we have to then minus 369 because he's spending this money. So his bank account balance is going down. So we're going to subtract. And he's also minusing $110. So look at what we've done here. We've taken all of these underlined bits and accounted for them in our expression. So we have my TV expense and my friend expense. This is the money he's losing. We have the money earning and the money losing. Now, our order of operations tell us once we have it in this form, perfect, we can now solve this like we would any other order of operations question. We have a multiplication and subtractions happening. So we want to do the multiplication first. Now, once again, feel free to pause this video and do this manually. Try to do it in your head or do it showing you're working out. But I've already done these questions before, so I'm just reading off the answers. So 5 times 420 gives me 2,100. And so I'm going to write that in place of 5 times 420. And for that, I'm subtracting my cost of my TV as well as the cost of paying back Charlie's friend. Now, remember with subtraction, it doesn't matter which ones we do first, but I'm just going to work from left to right and do this thing here. So 2,100 minus 369 gives me 1,731. So remember, I'm going down line by line by line, showing my working out. So I've written that in place of my first subtraction, and then I am subtracting 110 from that, which is going to give me $1,621 remaining. So after he has made all his money, he's subtracting the things he had to pay for, and he winds up with $1,621 left. Okay, we're going to do one more question here, and we're going to approach it in the exact same way. Now let's read it together. So we have a delivery of 15 boxes of books arrives. So we have 15 boxes of books. Each box here contains 8 books. So I have 8 books for 15 boxes. Now the next line, the bookstore owner removes 3 books from each box. So 3 books are removed from each box. Now, there are 2 ways we can do this. And I'm going to run you through both ways. And one of the ways actually ends up being a lot more time efficient, and you can apply another part of the order of operations that we've learned that we haven't gotten a chance to do yet. But no spoilers, we're going to run through this. Now, there are 2 methods that we can do this. So method 1 is the slightly more time-consuming method. So, first of all, I have 8 books in each box. So that means I have because I have 15 groups of, sorry, I should say 8 groups of books for my 15 boxes. So if we lay out our working out, I have 15 boxes and I have 8 groups of books there. Now, this tells me how much the bookstore owner actually got before she took the 3 books away from each box. So if we do this part 15 times 8, we are going to get 120 books altogether. Now this guy here, these are the books before the owner removed those groups of 3. Now we want to find out exactly how many books were removed. Now we have 3 books being removed from each box. So we have 15 lots of 3 books, or 15 groups of 3 books. So once again, we are going to multiply. So we're doing 15 times 3. That's going to give me 45 as an answer. So 45 books. And this thing here is the books removed. Okay, now we want to find, well, how many books are remaining? That's our question. How many books still remain in total after the books have been taken out? Now, remember, we are removing books here. So we are subtracting my books that get taken out from my original books that came in this delivery or whatever. So that means that the books remaining is going to be my original there, 120, and we're going to take away the books that were taken out, the total amount of books that were taken out. And that's going to give us an answer of 75 books remaining. So this was a process of doing this question in 2 parts. So we had our 15 boxes and we had 8 groups of books for each box. Or we can say 15 groups of 8 books. Doesn't really matter. It gives us the same thing. So we found the total amount she got at first, he or she got it first. And then we are going to subtract the books taken out. And the total there was 45. Now let's look at a second method of doing this. One that actually brings together a lot of the concepts we were talking about previously. Now, for this method 2, let's just consider my 1 box of books. I have, let's do this in another color. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books here. So I have my 8 books and I have 15 boxes. So I have 15 groups of this box of 8. So that's going to get multiplied by 15. But now we want to find a way that we can look at a shortcut, quick step to our working out. Now we're being told that 3 books were removed from each of these boxes. So we're actually saying that 3 of these books were actually removed beforehand. Because look, we're told delivery of 15 boxes arrived, each book contains 8 books, and then 3 books are removed from each box. So we can actually come up with a new expression. Because what was, after these got taken out, let me pop these up here. These books got taken out. These books were taken out. And we have our remaining ones in here. So let's actually look at the expression that we actually got, because we had my original 8 books and we took 3 away. We subtracted 3 books. And then we took this thing here and then made 15 lots of that. So the subtraction actually happens first. In this case, right, it is context dependent. For this question, I had my 8 books, then I took 3 out. Then I found out how many books that would be in total for my 15 boxes in total. So my 8 minus 3 actually got done first. So I'm putting brackets around that, because here I can even count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. Sorry, 5 books remaining. So I am doing my subtraction first because of how we broke down the question. So that means I have 8 minus 3, 5 books, and I have 15 groups of those 5 books in each box remaining. And if I do that, you can pause this video and have a go at doing this multiplication on your own. I get 75 books as my answer. And that is the exact same thing that we had up here. Now for this final question in particular, it's up to you which method you want to choose. I just wanted to give you both so you know you have options. There are multiple ways to get to the same answer. But this last way, I really wanted to draw attention to that because it draws together everything we have learnt in this topic. We included the brackets here. Now we're really working with our BODMAS. We are considering all of our operations that we can do. But that brings an end to this topic now properly. And now you will hopefully, by the end of this video, be able to get a worded question like this, break it down, and then solve it mathematically. But thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next series.